Hi, I'm Mayce.
And I'm Missy.
We're best friends
and business partners. And each week, we're going to bring you a quote that inspires us, and we're going to talk about it.
Join us as we break down our favorite impactful messages for leadership and share how you can apply them to lead with confidence and purpose.
Get ready for a fun and authentic journey into leadership, life, and everything in between. Well, hey, bestie.
Hey, bestie.
It's so good to be with you today.
I know, it's so fun. I'm so glad to be back here with you.
Well, recording the podcast is one of my favorite things we get to do all week.
I know. I would say the same thing. I love how we are really able to live out our passion and our purpose in a new way.
Yes, we are. And I'm excited to talk about today's quote. I actually have a story I'm going to share today that you have probably never heard.
Oh, I have one too that I think you might not have heard about our guest. I'm so excited. This is going to be such a good one.
It is going to be fun. The podcast is a brand new venture for us, so to speak. I mean, less than a few months or around a few months is newish. But it does allow us to live out our passion in a new way and hopefully add value to people on the journey as well.
Yes. And since we are talking about passion, I'm going to go ahead and share this week's quote that we're going to talk about.
Great.
Okay, here's the quote. Passion doesn't need an alarm clock. And Eric Thomas is the one that said that.
Oh, I love that one so much, Macy. I can't wait to dive in and talk about it. You know that passion is one of my core values. And so I'm really excited.
Do you remember we saw Eric speak at a John Maxwell event in Atlanta once? He was fantastic.
He was incredible. Yes.
Yeah. He's like the preacher, I think. Eric Thomas.
Yeah,
the preacher,
he's so good.
Okay. So I'm just so excited to introduce our guest because this is someone that I admire. I adore. I love. He has been a mentor to me and to my husband. He really is like family. And I know, Missy, you adore him too.
I do.
Right? So
I do.
Here we introduce Mr. Scott Fay. Hey, Scott.
Woohoo! Welcome.
Wow. Well, thank you. It's good to see you.
We love you. We love you. I'm gonna share, Scott, just with our listeners, some of your bio, if that's okay. You have owned, I say owned, not owner, and maybe you'll talk about that, owned Rudy Landscape and its sister company, Treasure Coast Irrigation, since 1996. You've been in the green industry, landscape, maintenance, irrigation since 1983. You have been the author of numerous articles for green industry trade magazines, also an author of a book that we might reference, featured presenter at state and national irrigation conventions. You have created something called the 13 core values, which guides your organization. Obviously, you're values-based, which we love. You have owned real estate investment companies, RV and boat storage. But one of the things that you love the most, or in this season that you really love doing, is taking distressed companies and turning them into industry leaders. And when I mentioned earlier that you are the author of a book, I actually have my copy right here.
I've got to get a copy.
All right, we'll get you one. Discover your sweet spot, the 7 steps to create a life of success and significance. So welcome again. We're just really excited.
So
Miss, do you want to share your story or you want me to go first?
No, I'm just, I'll
okay, you'll share it later.
Yeah, I'll share it later.
So Scott, I don't even know that you remember this because it was, believe it or not, Scott has been in our life, well, in my life for about 18 years. So when our first son was born, Jake was he wasn't even 1, or maybe he was just about 1. And we went to go, my husband Noel used to work with Scott. And we went, I'm going to show off the baby. It's a Friday. Let's go and hang out at TCI Rude, right? So I go and I bring Jake and he's dressed all cute. And I'm like, all right, Noel, I'm going to run to the ladies' room real quick. Everyone's around. It's a newer baby.
Yeah.
The kid takes his friggin' first steps.
No way.
I am a stay-at-home mom. I am waiting for this moment. This is like the crowning jewel. Your baby is about to walk for the first time, and he took his first steps at TCI Rude, and I wasn't even there.
Macy, I'm sorry.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you remember that, Scott. I mean, it wasn't as a big of a moment for you as it was for me. I mean, it scarred me. Here I am 17 years later talking about how I wasn't there for his first steps.
Let it go, let it go, let it go.
I know.
I have to tell her that all the time, Scott. I'm like, be like Elsa and let it go.
That's it. I say great old hymn of the church from Disney. Let it go.
Yes.
Yes. Be like Elsa. So Scott, when Missy and I when we had this idea for our podcast, right, we're going to take quotes, we were going to break them down each week and think about like, okay, who are the greatest guests that we could bring on that would have impact and add value to our listeners? When we thought about quotes and we thought about passion, because that is a core value of Missy's, there was no one else. Like Scott was the guy. Like we knew that Scott was the one.
Yeah.
That
there was nobody
going
else
to bring on. Yeah.
There's nobody else.
We're excited. Thank you.
Thank you. I will. So let's start with this. I've told my family that my living will is much different than most people's because it starts off with, if I ever lose my passion, shoot me.
Oh,
that's my living will.
Oh, wow.
It's way before they're keeping me alive with a machine. If I lose my passion, I just, please put me out of my misery and everybody around me. That's, and I know that's a little tongue in cheek, but I really,
I get it. I get it.
Life. My dad is 82 and I was just with him today. He works with us a little bit part-time and he runs errands he's an ambassador for us. And my dad is just as passionate today as he's ever been. And I can't imagine life without that.
So good.
I love the topic.
Well, good. Well, let's then talk about the quote, Scott. Tell us, what does it mean to you?
So, like passion doesn't need an alarm clock. So what does that mean to Scott Fay?
So, I think there are several themes that I love to share that I think have been impactful for me, and then I love to pass them on. And this whole idea of living in the sweet spot it involves passion is a big part. In fact, it's 1/3 of living in the sweet spot. But if you would, I'd like to say why the sweet spot's so important. If you've ever hit the ball with a bat, a club, or a tennis racket on the sweet spot.
I will tell you, Missy or Scott, Missy and I have never hit a ball on a sweet spot, a club, a bat. We're going to imagine you're taking us down the road.
And we're going to know our listeners how. Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Never?
We are not sporty girls, so we don't. Well, I know where you're going with it, but.
So have you ever kicked a ball and it was, no. So for everybody
our listeners, I'm sure there's listeners that have it.
Absolutely.
It's not about Mayce and Missy. So go ahead.
Well, it's just so much more impactful if you've experienced it. But when you hit the ball on the sweet spot of a bat, a glove, a tennis racket, your foot, it has a special sound. And now maybe you've been at a ballpark. There's a special crack. I mean, it sounds different when you really connect with the ball. And it turns out there's a very special place on the tennis racket, on the bat, on the golf club, where when you hit it on the sweet spot, it has a special sound. It has a special feel. Like when you're doing it, I'm explaining it to you since you haven't experienced it. It just like, oh my goodness, it has a special feel. And here's the kicker. You get extraordinary results with a lot less effort.
Yeah.
Meaning it's not how hard you swing that golf club or how hard you swing the bat or the tennis. It's swinging at the right speed, at the right time, at the right place. Like everything comes together and it's amazing. And when you're a kid, the first time it happens, you're like, oh my goodness, there's two things that happen to your head right away. My word, that was awesome. And the other thing is you don't even have to look. When you hit it on the sweet, you know where the ball's going. I mean, it's just a special feeling. Well, what does that look like in life? Well, when I say it has a special sound, I mean like in life, it's when you're in harmony. When I say it has a special feel, it's like when you're in your groove, right?
Yes.
And when I say you get extraordinary result with significantly less effort, I'm talking about, that's why passion doesn't need an alarm clock, because it's not work. In fact, I've heard this. I love this. This quote says that working hard is seldom the reason for burnout. Burnout doesn't come from working hard. Burnout comes from working outside our giftedness.
Yes.
In my words, it's working outside of your sweet spot. Okay, so if sweet spot has, if it's harmonious and if it has a special feel and we get extraordinary results with a lot less, what does that look like? So for me, it's about purpose, passion, and plan. That's why I say passion is 1/3 of that. We okay? Is this all right?
Yes.
So, this is what do you mean? Is this all right? This is amazing.
Amazing.
Okay, well, so purpose is knowing who we're designed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like to slow it down for a minute and really think about that. Like, purpose is significant. There's an ancient scripture that says we were fearfully and awesomely made, or something like that. And you were designed. Every person, and if you question that, you have to realize, if we found a strand of hair any place in the world, we could identify it to any person, to one person out of the 7 or 8 billion people on the planet. It could only belong to one person.
Yeah.
There's a fingerprint that only belongs to one person. If there's that much DNA in a strand of hair or a fingerprint, how much specialness, DNA, do you think God put in our person, our personality, or our personhood?
Oh my goodness, we are so good.
We're like 3 minutes in and I'm like, already, this is, amazing.
I know.
Well, here's the thing. If we don't stop and think about that, so how many times have you compared yourself to somebody else? Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
In fact, we're told you can't compare yourself with anyone. Well, why is that? Because you are different, literally, specifically different from anyone else on the planet. So when you compare yourself with somebody else, you're way out of line. There's no baseline there. You are the baseline. It's where you are. So knowing who you're designed to be, and there's lots of tools for knowing who you're designed to be. I know DISC is a big one that you guys use.
Yes. Yeah.
CI is another one. I like taking as many of those and putting them together. I love 5 strengths and identifying your 5 strengths. I like Lencioni's Working Genius, which comes at it from a different aspect. I like Myers-Briggs, and I've taken all of those tools because I've heard John Maxwell say you can't grow yourself unless you know yourself.
Right.
And so how do you know yourself? There's so many great tools and assessments that if anybody on the call or on podcast, if you haven't taken, I encourage you to take those things so that you know who you're designed to be.
Yeah.
We could spend the rest of our time there, but let me keep moving. So that's who we're designed to be. Passion is what we love to do. And so think of it this way. In your purpose, there's just an almost infinite things you could do, but now we need to find out, of all the things you could do, how do they overlap with the things you love to do? How many times do you find yourself doing things or you don't love to do them, but you can, so you do? All right. So we got to know yourself, grow yourself, all that. You got to know the things that love you do. What makes you laugh? What makes you sing? What makes you cry? What motivates? What gives you joy? What do you tend to do when you're the most tired? What is your go-to? What do you avoid when you are tired? What fills you up and what brings all those great questions? And again, we could spend a bunch of time talking about that. Then the plan is, if I know who I'm designed to be and I know what I love to do, then what do I want to get? What do I want to have? It's not just material things. It's like, where do I want this to end? You do know that it all ends for us at some point, right?
Yeah. Right. Of course.
It all comes to an end.
Of course. Right.
If my mom's mom just passed away, my business partner's uncle just passed away. It's going to happen to all of us. Where do you, and we never know, right? Our days are numbered, but we don't know what that number is. But if you could remember the future with the same specificity that you remember the past. If I asked you, who was at your house this last past Christmas or past Thanksgiving. You would tell me who was there. You would tell me who you wish were there, and you would tell me who you wished wasn't there, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you could tell me you could tell me what you ate, what you loved, the presents you got at Christmas, the presents you gave. You could, all these details. Well, take that same specificity and think, okay, now this is my last Christmas, or this is my final Thanksgiving. And I'm at my final Thanksgiving, and at that point, this is what I hope I've accomplished, and this is what I hope I experienced, and these are the lives I hoped I touched, and this is the difference I like. With great specificity, how do you want this to end? And the reason that's so important, if you go back to this purpose, passion, and plan, and you put each of those in a Venn diagram with 3 circles, it's in the book, but 3 circles of all the things that you do in purpose and all the things that you love to do in passion, and of all the things you might like to have or be or end up with, and where those 3 things intersect, those 3 circles intersect, it's a very small place.
And that's the sweet spot.
That's the passion. Let me ask you this, because we're talking about passion doesn't need an alarm clock, right? So, and in that were your 3 circles, and we talked about purpose. Was there a pivotal point in your life or your career, Scott, that you realized your calling, that you're like, this is it? I know you gave the example of hitting the club or the bat, right? So what was that moment for you that you realized, I'm living it?
That's a great question, Mayce.
Right now.
It is. And I'll be very candid. It's a very personal question, and I'll share it. I'll share it with this caveat that everyone listening or paying attention to this conversation, it's okay to learn from other people's experience, but each person's obviously experience will be different. So for me, the turning point was, I was raised in a pastor's home and raised in the church. I was born December 21st, and December 25th, I was in church. And I've been in church ever since.
PK, preacher's kid. That's where that's where people could find you.
That's right. That's and I say I'm a recovering preacher's kid, and I say that to my dad in jest. But it was a great way to grow up. But I grew up with a lot of very much in that church world where. And my relatives were pastors and school teachers and people who gave and served. And that was always viewed in my direct culture as the ultimate. Like, if you really want to make a difference, you're either a pastor or a missionary, you're a teacher, you're a giver, not a taker, and all those things. And I grew up, and by the time I was 18, I went off to Bible school right here in Hope Sound, Florida, because that was the next step. And to make this, to get right to the point, there's lots of steps, of course, there. But I remember at one point getting alone and having some real soul searching and questioning. I don't feel drawn to be my parents never put it on me that I had to be a pastor or anything or any of those things. But like I have 4 years of college and ended up with a 2-year degree because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do when I grew up, right? So I'm in that point, and I had not picked the major because I wasn't sure what I was, this very thing we're talking about, because, so here, let me get right to the point. I had this scripting that said, I really want to do business. I love business. I've been chasing a mower since I was 12, borrowed my money for my first mower from my dad and paid it off in one summer. And I was a nerd when it came to, that's all I thought about is buying stuff that I could make money with. That's, anyway. And so it's what I loved to do. I absolutely loved to do it. And in this quiet time, I'm thinking, or praying, or however you want to frame it, I have to sacrifice what I want because I really need to be service-oriented. And I've had this strong premonition or feeling or word or however everybody would describe it differently. Where do you think that feeling came from? I believe the great designer who designed the DNA, who I'm designed to be and what I love to do, and that all came from him.
Scott,
That day.
Well, I was just going to ask. Go ahead, continue.
That day, he, that's my way of describing God, freed me to pursue what I wanted to do. And he assured me that if I would do what he scripted me to do, that I would be able to serve through what I was doing. I didn't have to that didn't preclude me from serving, but he called me to do it differently in this way with my DNA, my gifting. And if you go all the way back, and I know this is pretty granular, almost literally, because if you go all the way back to when I was 5 years old, I had this big sand pit that my dad made for me. And I had all these toy trucks and tractors and all of the things that a little boy loves to play with. And I would build, I build roads and I build these houses, and I would take little stones and put around this head, little sticks, and put trees in them. And I would do and these were actually beautiful little, I was building like a little village. And then I would load these tractors on the trailer, hook them to the truck, drive the truck back to this thing that I made as a shop. And it was a square shop with a flat roof with pine boards. And I would line up all the trucks in a line and the trailers all in a line. That's when I was 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
When we bought this property that I'm at right now on Bridge Road, the first thing I did when I bought this property is I lined up where all the trucks would line up. And
I love it. Yeah. Wow. I love it.
And if you come and you look at this, you'll see the office here is a square building with
like the sandbox.
Just like this. Yes. God was, I picture it like we're like a piece of smoked glass, and the artist begins to etch in the glass, and people are walking by this artist and say, well, I think it's this, and somebody else, no, I think it's that, but the artist continues to work. And after a period of time, something comes up that nobody even saw, nobody recognized, but it's a beautiful rendering of something other than what everybody else expected. I believe if we'll let go and let God, he will create a life that is different and more beautiful than anybody ever suspected, but we got to let him do it.
Yes.
I think that's such great advice, right? For someone who is trying to determine. So a lot of people, I think, go through life. They're just doing a thing. It's not even their thing. It's just a thing. And I think that that's so beautiful that if you're not sure what your calling is, what your purpose is to just sit for a little while or kind of look back over time. Like, what did you do when you were a little kid? Like, almost ask yourself, if you're listening to this, like, what was your sandbox moment?
Yeah.
Right. And maybe that would help someone determine what their passion or their sweet spot. I think a lot of people struggle.
I agree. It's interesting because the story that Macy, I told you I was going to share about passion, it actually takes me back to when I was young. Specifically, I was a senior in high school, and I had won a junior Miss competition and was preparing to go to the big state competition, right? And the newspaper had come out, and they were doing an interview with me. And I remember at that time, they asked me to describe myself with 3 words, 3 adjectives. And I don't remember what 2 of them were, but one of them, I used the word vivacious. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, that word had me
you were haunted,
ridiculed, joked, vivacious Missy, for years. It was this big joke. But what I realized is I wouldn't have, as a 17-year-old, probably said I'm passionate, right? But vivacious and using that word to describe myself at the time, it was about this feeling, this enthusiasm, this zest for life that I had, right? That only passion can bring. And so when I was reflecting on this quote and thinking about my life and how it's shown up, it really, to me, it's more about who you are in living out how God has created you than necessarily what you're doing. It's that internal feeling of just exuberance about waking up another day and being able to serve and live out that purpose that you determine in a way that other people can feel it.
Yeah. I mean, Scott, we've had people, I'm sure you're not surprised to hear this, but we've had people say, how do you girls do what you do over and over and over and over? Because we've gone in and we've trained companies, multiple times, and it's basically the same content.
Right. A new group. Same content.
Different people, same content. And we've had people say, you've done this so much, but it's like you're doing it for the first time. And that's that sweet spot. That's that passion. Like, we may be tired at the end of the day, but not because of what we're doing, right? What we're doing is lighting us up, and there's that energy and excitement, and we're just so excited to be there and be in the room. It's like with this podcast, like, we love doing it. We love talking with the leaders and bringing new people on and hopefully adding value. I love and appreciate so much, Missy, what you said about it's a feeling. It's almost like back in the day, I don't know if either one of you know this. Well, Missy, you might, but I was a talent agent for years. That's what I did when I lived in New York. I recruited talent for TV commercials. And there was always something that these kids had, like, you would refer to it as it. They had it.
Yes.
You don't know what, I could never be like, okay, this kid has it, this kid doesn't. This is what you need to do to get it. You can't get it. You either had it or you didn't have it. And I think that that's what passion is, right? Like, passion is a thing, like, you can't put your finger on it, but it's one of those things when you have it, because it does wake you up without an alarm clock. Like, you're excited. You're facing the day instead of dreading the day.
If I could, if there are folks on with us right now that they're struggling with that, I'd really like to put some practical things, because there are some things. Which I love this. I just wrote it down. The 3 words that describe, that's a great place to start. That's a tool that may not hit gold for someone, but it could for somebody else. I love that. There's another tool that, have you ever been in a conversation with somebody that you've really got to know very well, and it comes up, Mayce, when I first met you, I thought bop, 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 and now I know you this way. Or if somebody says, the thing I know about Missy or Mayce is, and the ... When people talk about you I'm talking about in an affirming way. I don't care about the people who have other things to say. What I love about those two, or what I love about that individual, is those are clues to help us understand where our sweet spot and where maybe even some of our passions, but definitely our sweet spot. There's another one that helped me tremendously as a young adult. And I took an assessment that's different than any of the other ones we've talked about today. But one of the questions was, make a list of all your successes, and gave us some time to do that. And then now make another list of all of the things you would call your failures or your setbacks, your disappointments. The things that didn't go as well as you thought they would. The things that went, you did it, and man, that worked out really well. And then the things that you would just say, oh man, that just, no matter how hard I tried, I could not pull that off. And then look for the commonality in each one of those columns, not where they're common with each other, but all the successes. What do they have in common? And all of the failures. And Mayce, when you did my intro, you talked about this thing that I've loved to do, is take distressed companies and roll them into what we're doing today. Right. And that was one of the things that showed up on this list for me. I'm a recreator, not a creator.
Oh.
And it was so helpful, because every time I started from scratch, even as a landscaper, if somebody buys a building lot, and they come out and they say, we're putting a house here. What do you see for landscape? I can't help you. Well, you're a landscaper. Sorry, can't. But you show up either with a plan or with a palette of plants that you love. And you said, look, I love these plants. And I can begin to recreate. And, you would say, I think this would go here. And I said, well, to balance it. And everything I've done that has turned out well is when I recreate. And everything that I've really struggled with, I've started from scratch.
Wow, what an aha.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. The light comes on. So there are tools that can help us if somebody's struggling. I mean, I've done these mentoring 2-day life plans with 50-year-old men, and I would ask the very first question I ask. I just do it. I do it with men. It's 2 days intense, and so I think that's my sweet spot, working with my peers. And I start it with this question: what do you want? What do you really, really want? And I think some of you guys, you and maybe some of the folks on this may have been in some of those workshops that I've done with Maxwell. But that I would start every workshop, every life plan with what do you want? What do you really, really want?
And if Missy was hosting that workshop, there would be the song by the Spice Girls.
I know.
Tell me what you want, what you really want.
Really want. That's right. There sure would.
And I would always say, I'm not talking about the Spice Girls. But yes. So what's interesting to me and fascinating and sad at the same time is there are many 50-year-old men that say, I don't know. Mm-hmm. How do you live for 50 years? Or why would you live for 50 years? And if somebody's in that place listening to this, I'm not judging, but I'm saying, okay, think about it. What do you want? What do you really, really want? Because
Scott, it could be that they've never been asked the question, or they've never taken the time to ask themselves that question. So I love that you're literally saying, okay, if you're listening to this and you don't know, you need to stop this recording, press pause, get out a piece of paper, and write down the question.
Right.
What do you want? What do you really, really want? And play the Spice Girls for some inspiration.
You could do that.
Just real quick, I always, when I ask people that and they don't know, it makes me think of the movie The Notebook, where she's like, what do you want? Do you want?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you're spot on, because it affects our relationships. It affects and I've also heard it said that when you're faced with a decision, it's not a matter of, is this right or is this wrong? And I don't mean morally wrong. If it's morally wrong, that should be a no-brainer.
Right.
Is this a good idea or a bad idea? And everybody else will tell you what you should do, and there's should all over you. But what you need to know is what you really what you really want. So the question becomes, does this move me in the direction of what I want, or does this take me away? I mean, we make so many decisions in silos. And then we wonder why we end up where we end up. Well, we never thought about where we wanted to go. Well, why would we not? Right?
If you're getting in a car and you just don't know where you're going. I had this thought, and part of it's because I saw your cowboy hat in the background. I know you love jeans. I know you love cowboy boots. You may even have your boots on right now.
Yes, right now.
There's another quote that says, opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. Right. I know it's not the quote of the week, but I feel like there are sometimes people feel like if you're passionate about something and you're living and working in your sweet spot, that it should be easy, right? It shouldn't feel like work. But I mean, Missy and I love what we do. You love what you do. But there are days, God darn it, it's hard.
It's hard work.
What would you say then, Scott, to people who are listening and they're like, I'm struggling because I love what I do, but I'm having a hard time getting energized or motivated, or today feels like I'm working too hard. I mean,
great question. I mean, any goal worth pursuing. I have a really good friend she has run 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. That's something she really wanted to do, and only 165 people in the world have ever done it. Do you know how hard she worked to be able to run 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents? It's an amazing regimen I can't even describe, but it's documented. This is like, I mean, she did it with a group of people. This is not hearsay. That's the real deal.
Yeah.
When there's things we really, really want, doesn't mean when I say we get extraordinary results with a lot less effort, now that's given her a platform. All the work, all the sacrifice, all the time she said no to social stuff because she was working for years getting ready for this 7 days. She worked for years to get ready for 7 days. And now she has a platform, and it's just like Nick Vujicic. There have been people who have said to Nick, you've really got an advantage because of your disability. It's like an advantage. Are you kidding me? No, he doesn't have an advantage because of his disability. He took what he would dealt, the hand he was dealt, and he worked very hard with the hand he was dealt. If you've ever heard John Maxwell say, people say, I want to do what you do. And he said, yeah, but would you want to do what I've done?
Yes.
I mean,
right.
So it's a great question, and it's uphill all the way for success. But when you get to those points of what you really, really want, Think and Grow Rich says the same thing, and that riches will come. Now, this is just talking about money, but it's a measure. Riches will come in uncommon times, in uncommon places, and you'll wonder, and it's like it was there all the time. It wasn't there all the time, but you just worked and worked and worked and worked. Finally, it showed up.
Yeah. So if anyone is listening and thinks that it's going to be easy, it's not necessarily going to be easy. Sometimes passion doesn't mean that, well, I think all the times, all the passion doesn't mean that you're not going to have to work hard, right? You just, that's just wrong.
There needs to be moments of joy through the process.
Yes.
Yes.
We love a good celebration. Scott, let me ask you this. Sometimes people are afraid to do the thing they're passionate about. And we actually did an episode that people can go back to. We spoke about fear. But in your experience, what have you done, or what would you tell our listeners to do when there is fear about taking a chance, taking that step, taking the risk to live in their passion zone? Like, there's a fear. I want to do what I'm passionate about, but I'm afraid to do it. What would you help? What could you say that would help people overcome that fear?
And a lot of people are stuck there, Mayce.
Yeah.
So a couple, not to sound like there's 2 or 3 easy steps, but there's a couple things that we really have to remember. One is that fear and faith can't stay in the same place.
One of my favorite things.
So good.
Right? So when we're overcome with, and what's interesting is the thing that we're fearful of that requires faith, either way, we're talking about something unknown. So if you're afraid of something, but you really want something, it's because you don't know. Well, if you don't know, but you choose to believe, or you don't know and you choose to be faithful, it's still or fearful, it's still the same. So
it's a choice.
I'm going to choose faith if
every time
if it's something I want.
So go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry.
So the other thing is again, I think it goes back to, what do you want? What do you really, really want? Seneca said, the most important question you can ask is why.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how we're doing in time, but
we're good. Keep going. Keep going.
So one of those life plans I was doing was with a man in his 50s from Texas. He was if you can say it this way, he was in today's world, you got to be careful what you say, but he was a manly man. Okay. And he was by all standards very successful, and he was one of the people who did know exactly what he wanted. And I said to him, when we started the life plan, what do you want? What do you really, really want? And he said, I can tell you, we talk about it all the time. Every dime we get that we can spare, we save for this. We're going to build a big house. So, okay. So I wrote big house. And I said, why? Now, some of the point of this is when we're doing self-reflection, I think it's so important to not just stop with the first answer that we get, but ask, why do I want that? Why do I want that? So I said to him, I called him by name and said, okay, so you want a big house. Why do you want that? Well, he said, because we have 4 kids, they're all married and they all have kids, and it's a big crowd, and we want to get together all at the same time. That's why we want a big house. And I said, why would you? No, I didn't say that. I said, why do you want to get together at the same time? And he said, well, when we get together, we make fun of each other, we make memories, we carry on. It's a clan, I'm telling you. And I said, well, why do you want to have good times? Like there was something more. And this is a big dude, and he's just very confident in what he's saying. And I said, so why is all that important to you? And he cracked like an egg. His eyes began to leak. And he said, because when Papa's gone, I want them to know Papa loved them. Okay. That's what you want.
Yeah.
So we wrote that down. That's why you want what you want. So we did a 2-day life plan. We get at the end of the life plan, we do the same thing that we start with. So at the very last question, and this life plan, it's charts all over the wall, every chapter of your life, every turning point. It's an amazing process. And I said, okay, so yesterday we started with the big house, and you've got all this done, and now I just want to make sure you're on the same page with your wife and your life. What do you want? What do you really, really want? She said, when I got home back to the hotel, I called my wife. I said, honey, what are we thinking? We're going to build this big house. We're going to put every dime we have into this big house. The house we have is fine. The chances of all of our 4 kids are spread out all over the country, them all coming at the same time. Maybe it happens once a year. I think we ought to keep the house we're in and buy us an RV or a motorhome, and we go to our kids, and we go to baseball games and soccer games, and we go to graduations and birthday parties. We go to them. Yeah. If they all want to come in, we'll figure out a way, but we don't need to spend all this money on a house.
Wow.
And I saw them a few years later. That's exactly what they did. They had saved enough money for this big place and this big property and this big thing. He said, no, sir, so that whole idea that you can climb that ladder and find out it's leaning against the wrong wall is in this discussion. I think it's so important when you ask yourself, what do you want? Because what you want has a lot to do with your passion.
Yes.
And the passion has a lot to do with the purpose. So I know we're talking about passion, but purpose, passion, and plan really have to come together if we're going to have any focus. The sunlight that we enjoy most days in Florida, today's not necessarily one of them, but it will take all day long to give you a sunburn. But you take a magnifying glass and you get real focus with that same sun, and you can catch a piece of paper on fire in seconds. It's all about focus. It's same power, same sun, same day, same temperature, but you've got focus. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what we can do if we have focus. So if you know who you're designed to be, and if you know really what you love to do and where you want to, then your passion, that's when this passion thing doesn't need an alarm clock. Because now you not only love what you're doing, but you got a reason to do it.
Yeah.
You want to run 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. So you eat nothing but the things that are prescribed to you, and you sacrifice everything for 2 or 3 years for 7 days.
Yeah. So good. So good. Scott, do you have any advice for our listeners of turning passion into a career?
No. How's that?
Come on. I always call Scott my wise old owl. And I don't mean like old, but for whatever reason, we think of owls as old.
That's better than being a turkey or a buzzard. So thank you.
I guess so. But come on, my old wise owl. Don't fail me now. You have some advice.
So just to be very honest, to turn it into a career, I think it's a great question. And I'm just, I'm stalling, right? I'm trying to come up with something way more profound than no.
Oh, it doesn't need to be profound.
No, I'm kidding you. I love being on this because this is just real conversation. I think, when you change the way it's written on, one of the things written on my wall here, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think people who really have the awareness that I'm talking about could do almost any career.
Mm.
The way my dad pastors is different from the way anybody else pastors. And today he's retired. He doesn't have a church. He's pastoring just like he did when he had a church. He doesn't have a church. He's retired.
Yeah.
The way my dad, he's a community guy, and he just loves on people. And sometimes he loved them in a building, and sometimes he loved them at the hospital, and sometimes he loved them at a funeral, but he loved people. And right now he's not being asked to go to the hospital or the funeral home or wherever. He's not performing weddings or funerals as much, but he's just loving people. And I think, Missy, it's a great question. But again, when you change the way you look at things, some people think they're stuck in a job or in a relationship or in a situation, And if they would become healthy and whole as a person, they could actually flourish right where they are. I think so many relationships get busted up because of this lack of understanding of really being whole as a person. And we're expecting somebody else to complete us. We're expecting someone else to make us happy. You've heard, if anybody else can,
or another job to make us happy, right? Or
another job, change my city, or I'm going to move to another part of the country. If it was warmer or colder or drier, if I was richer or poorer, like it's not any of that. It is really, really getting in tune with who are. It's one of the reasons I love the Working Genius by Pat Lencioni. He says there's 6 working geniuses. And all of us have 2 that are our primary, 2 that we do really well, and 2 that we struggle with. Okay, and these are called, the first one's called wonder, the second one's called invention. By the way, this is the way any idea progresses. Somebody says, I wonder what would happen if, and there's people who just are really good at wondering, and then there's people who invent. And then after it's been wondered and invented, then there's people who are discerners. And a lot of times we don't appreciate those people because they're the people who pick the pepper out of the you-know-what, because they're the saying, they're the but people. But if we'll listen to them, they can, and if it's not right, it goes back to invention, and the inventors reinvent it and they get it right, okay? And if they can't get it right, then we go back to the wonder person and say, well, maybe we're wondering the wrong thing. So it goes from wonder to invention to inzerment. Then somebody is like me. This is one of my primary, galvanize. I can get everybody let's go. Come on, let's get on the team. Let's make it happen. And my team will tell you, there's times I've got people all rallied up, but we don't even know where we're going. Like I need with that, right?
My gosh. But that's...
Right? You follow me?
But we need people like you, Scott.
Yeah. So it goes from wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, and then somebody's got to give the people the tools, and you guys give people tools. And then there's somebody, this is my frustration, working frustration. The last part of the gear, and it's called a widget. The last part of this widget is tenacity. These are the people that can do a list of things every single day in and day out, and they love to do that. And thank God for those people. I can do anything consistently once. So that's my working frustration. So I took a lot of our time right now to say that if your job requires you to primarily do one of those things, and it's not your working genius, it's not the career, it's the seat you're sitting in the career. Every doctor that you know, every artist that you know, every business leader, could be any one of those things. They just have to do it in that way. And again, it's a great tool. It's called Working Genius.
Check it out, listeners. Well, my goodness, Scott, I knew this was going to be amazing. I mean, we had no doubt. There's so much gold in this episode. I literally cannot wait to go back and listen myself and take notes.
I totally agree with you, Macy. Like I want to get my
Spice Girls and rock out to tell me what you want. Right? Really figure it out.
Yeah,
it's been amazing.
So for our listeners today, if you only take one thing from today's episode, let it be this: passion fuels purpose. And really, when you're passionate about something, it becomes contagious. And then other people want to explore their passions and their purpose as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that our listeners can feel and sense our energy, Scott, but absolutely your energy too. That's why we knew that this was the perfect quote for you today, because we do YouTube. So if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or any of the audio, we also do YouTube. But we knew through audio, people would be able to hear what you're all about. That's why this quote was just amazing.
Yeah. And we want to challenge our listeners this week to identify one thing you're truly passionate about, something that doesn't need an alarm clock to get you excited. And then take an intentional step to channel that passion into making a positive impact. Really, as Scott said, living out your purpose, whether it's in your work, your relationships, or your community. Remember, even small actions can lead to big transformations when they're fueled by passion.
Yeah,
Missy,
you have to take a step.
True. That is so true.
You have to take a step.
I've struggled with some health issues, health habits for a long time. And I started to make, back before Thanksgiving, I got involved with the carnivore, eating plan. And that led me to wanting to do a cold plunge. And that led me to yes. And then that led me to want to do the exercise that I have fought tooth and nail. I didn't want to exercise. It just wasn't in my DNA, wasn't a passion of mine. But when I start this and then I go to this, and now I'm finding when you get out of 50-degree water in 6 o'clock in the morning, you want to do something really badly. So it's exercise is just one way you warm your body back up. But all kidding aside, I mean, that's for real. And I don't miss a day. And I'm doing things I've never been able to consistently do because of what you just shared, Missy. If you just start with something.
Yeah, take a step.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite words, in fact, it's my word for 2025 is up level.
That's a good one.
I heard a long time ago.
That's a good
that if I'd be willing to just up level 1% a week, up level something in my life, 1% a week, take 2 weeks off for vacation, I'd be 50% better at the end of the year. And
it's amazing, right?
That doesn't compound. There is a compound effect. So it's way more than 50%.
Absolutely.
Imagine being 50%.
50% better?
Yeah.
I know. Like, why wouldn't you do something? So, Scott, tell people, I'm holding it up, but you're only going to be able to see it if you're watching us on YouTube. Yeah. Tell people where they can find your book, Discover Your Sweet Spot. Where are they going to get it?
Amazon, I think, is probably the easiest place. I don't know, there may be other places too, but Amazon has the book. And thank you. It's my story. I've been chasing a mower since I was 12, and my tagline when I'm talking is, if these principles can work for a guy who does professionally what a 12-year-old kid could do. The entry level is pretty small, pretty easy. Then it can work for anybody. And I'm living beyond my dreams because of principle.
Love that. And we'll put that in our show notes too for our listeners, Scott. So as we wrap up, we ask all our guests, Scott,
you've shared a lot. You've shared a lot of quotes already.
But what is your favorite leadership quote? We know you have a lot. As Mayce said, you've already shared a lot. But what's your favorite leadership quote?
Well, they're on the wall here. There's so many that I really do.
There's so many.
One of my favorite. Can I give you a couple? Or
sure. There are no rules. We write the rules. Let's do it.
Yeah. People do not decide their futures. They decide their habits. Ooh. And their habits decide their futures.
It's a good one.
People do not decide their futures. They don't decide their futures. They decide their habits. And their habits decide their futures.
That is so good.
And of course, one of my favorites is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. One of my favorite stories is Stephen Covey in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People talks about a guy getting on a train on a Sunday morning for a nice quiet ride. And I'll give it to you as quickly as I can. He's got his coffee, and back in the day when they carried newspapers, he was reading his Sunday paper. A quiet ride into the city, and the very next stop, some guy gets on with 2 kids that are just bouncing off the walls, running all over the place, screaming and carrying on. And he's like, "Are you kidding me? I mean, this is my quiet Sunday ride." And he puts up with it about as long as he can stand it. And he puts his paper down and he says, "Sir, could you please get your children under control?" And the man looks up and his eyes are all bloodshot. He's crying. He said, "Oh, sir, I'm sorry. We just left the hospital and their mom just died. And I don't know how to deal with this. And I'm sure they don't either." The man never picks up the coffee or the paper again. He goes over to the kids, wraps his arm around the kids, same train, same Sunday morning. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And in our lives, there are things that we get wound up about that aren't worth getting wound up about. There's other things that we should get wound up about. Yeah. And I pray each and every day. I do my best to pray every day. Help me to see things in a bigger picture than just what I know.
Gosh.
Scott, so you've been so incredible. Thank you so much. And for our listeners, do you have a favorite leadership quote? Let us know that too, and we may spotlight it on a future episode. We'll be back next week with another quote and more leadership insights. And Miss, you know what we're going to do?
I do, sister. We're going to talk
about it. All right, bestie.
Bye, bestie. Bye, Scott.
Bye,
Thank
Scott.
You so much.
Thank you. So thanks for having me on.
We want to thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, please show us some love by clicking the 3 dots to download the podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating on your podcast app and talk about it with other leaders to help them find the show from any of the major podcast apps. We'd love for you to follow us on social media too. Mpactful with an M _ messages on Instagram and Mpactful Messages on LinkedIn.